Thanks for joining us today on the Carolina Justice Report. I'm Rainee Romero with the lovely law firm. Today I'm joined with attorneys Sarah Austin and Amy Lawrence, and we're chatting all about the Murdaugh murders. We are back for another update because it has been the 1-year anniversary. Stay tuned. So we are back. You guys have been with us for the whole Murdaugh murders discussions that we've been having. I think this is number 5, and so we are doing another update for June. But we appreciate those of you that have been watching all of our previous videos and episodes on YouTube. Keep watching. Let us know what you want to know, and we'll definitely address it for you. But gosh, there's been a lot that's happened since our last update. So last time we were chatting, it was all about, kind of some of the questions that were in mind of who was involved. There was a lot of people that were being brought up. The police chief of the area, we were looking into Maggie's bank account, and we were talking about who was the other guy that got arrested?
Corey Fleming.
Corey Fleming we were chatting about. So a lot's happened since then. Lots of evidence seeming to mount for Alec. Not looking good for him. So Amy, what are some of the stuff we've found out lately?
Well, we've had lots more indictments.
So piggybacking off of our last episode, we were talking about Corey Fleming and Russell Laffitte and Gloria Satterfield and her case and their involvement, and there were indictments for that. And they just came out and said that they're going to actually exhume Gloria Satterfield's body.
Right. Which is a big deal.
This is a huge deal.
I mean, that shows that there's enough evidence, obviously, that there's questions, so they want to pull her body back up. But I don't really know, what can they find at this point from Gloria? Are they looking for a cause of death more, or?
Right. I think that the big question now is they're questioning how she actually died.
Gotcha.
They're looking for.
Anytime you have, we all might know 1 or 2 people who have killed died in a mysterious way, right? But when you have body after body after body after body that's tied to you and your family and your home, it's where there's smoke, there's fire, and we need to look.
Right.
And I think that the Satterfield family, they want answers to what happened to their mom, and they deserve those answers.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. So, we'll keep you updated on that. That hasn't, been released yet on what they're doing. I don't even think she's been,
exhumed yet.
Right. So that should be interesting to see what they find. But who was the other person? So Corey Fleming. Now I don't know if the other guy, we talked about him being indicted.
Russell Laffitte.
Laffitte. Now who was he?
So Russell Laffitte was the CEO and president of Palmetto State Bank.
Right.
And we learned through all these indictments that he was So anytime in personal injury law, we always hear these cash advancements against your personal injury claim. We see them on TV all the time, and we hate them, right? We hate those.
They're not good for
We have them actually built into our fee agreements that we don't allow it. With the exception, sometimes we have an exception every blue moon if we have a family that's in a horrible spot. And the reason why we're against those is that they're these extreme high interest rate loans. So, we've had clients that will borrow $5,000 against their personal injury claim, and they end up owing $30,000 when it's all said and done, which is just mind blowing. So it's
not a good
horrible.
financial move for anybody.
Right. So we've got Russell Laffitte at Palmetto State Bank, who is giving these loans on behalf of Alex Murdaugh's clients, and Alex Murdaugh is actually suggesting them to get them and sending them to Palmetto, and then but also the law firm, from what I understand, PMPED, was sending clients there to get these high interest loans. If we saw that he was sending them to Palmetto, the only way I would ever send someone to get one of those is if we knew that there was like an extremely low interest loan, right? That would be helpful for that family, and then they wouldn't end up owing 5 times what they're borrowing. I just can't even imagine sending someone that close, and so they've been charged with conspiracy.
It had to be a scheme between the law firm and the bank just to sort of help the bank.
It's like a continuous stream of clients, and they're referring each other back.
And Russell Laffitte's name is involved in almost all of these scamming sort of transactions, even the one recently where they found out that Alex Murdaugh bought a funeral home in Georgia
Yeah, he's
This is so
approving the
interesting.
wire.
And a hearse. Russell Laffitte was involved in that transaction.
He's sending the wire. Okay, I don't know presidents of bank who approve wires.
Now, why would I mean this is so weird to me. So did he buy the funeral home prior to the deaths and all of that, or after?
Prior, right?
prior
Yeah.
to Paul and Maggie's death.
Yeah, death.
Yeah.
Okay. And it was bought in Georgia, you said, right?
Right. So it was not, some attorneys we've seen have made comments that, genius having a funeral home to get personal injury cases, wrongful death cases, and which I think is sick and borderline criminal in itself and unethical.
Definitely unethical.
Definitely unethical. But on the other hand, this is not, he didn't buy a funeral home in South Carolina, he bought a funeral home in Georgia where he is not licensed.
Right.
Which is even more suspect and weird. And, we've all seen Ozark, right?
That's right where my mind.
Right. Oh, immediately. We all went to
was like,
Ozark.
I haven't seen Ozark. You'll have to fill me in here.
So
It's
they're
about
using
drugs
it to
and murder.
drugs, murder, money laundering,
And money laundering, basically.
and getting rid of bodies when, things get hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it just feels sketchy. Also, Corey Fleming was licensed in Georgia, so
Yeah. Maybe they're all tied together.
I don't know.
I don't even know, for the lawyers in this case, I don't even know how you work this thing up. There's just so many details.
And it's crazy because we know all this money was stolen and Russell Laffitte was part of it. And then all of a sudden we see this, I think, was Corey the one that paid for it? They go to the World Series
Yeah.
in a privately chartered plane paid for with the money. And it's Russell Laffitte, Corey Fleming, Alex Murdaugh. I mean, it's just insane.
Yeah.
It's just,
And the
just when we
lawyers
don't think it can get any crazier,
and the lawyers digging against them, it just gets crazy because there's so many different aspects to the case. You have Mallory Beech's lawyers looking for where the money went. You have all the victims that they stole from looking for where the money went.
Right.
You have the FBI and, state law enforcement, I guess, looking for where the money went and bodies at this point and drugs. I don't know what they're looking for.
Well, when this
But-
goes to trial, I mean, is this just going to be, do each of these things have to be tried separately? Are these trials just going to go on forever? Is it one big trial?
I'm going to give you the lawyer answer. It depends.
Nobody knows yet.
It depends.
Okay.
Chances are the murder would be separate. Maggie and Paul's murder, if whoever's charged with that, will be separate. Because, this would be a trial that never ended, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And it will depend on motions, and because, any defense attorney is going to file motions to sever them. That way they're tried separately. And then there also
prosecution-
might be a plea. We don't know.
I feel like because the investigation really is still pending and
It's
still
all still up in the
developing,
air.
which is interesting that it's been a year from the murders and they're still investigating.
Well, and stuff keeps coming up, so it's
Right.
just insane. We're at the 1-year anniversary, of Paul and Maggie. They died June 7th of 2021, and so a lot of people are really shocked that there have not been any official charges filed yet a year later. But with so much still coming out, it's just
Yeah, but what we do know is there is really some in-depth, active investigation going on, which is always good.
Yeah.
As lawyers, I don't think there can be ever too much information and too many things brought to light. I think anytime, more is more. And we want to know everything because the only way to bring truth to light is to know it all.
right.
And evaluate it from an educated point of view, with all the evidence to look at. And so now we have SLED who's getting involved with outside agencies outside of South Carolina, which I think is good.
Right.
Because it's outside the reach of any kind of look of impropriety or anything like that. And so we have, we've learned that Alex Murdaugh had high-powered blood spatter on his shirt,
Right.
which I know you've been giving me hell.
Been giving her grief because
Yeah.
you watched the last episode.
Yeah.
Which you haven't. Go back and watch it. But on the last episode, towards the end, Amy says, "You just don't kill your kids."
You don't,
just
and I
don't do that. They
still
don't kill
feel
their
that way. Yeah, I just,
So as evidence piles up against
Right.
Alec,
So he's got this high-powered blood spatter on his shirt, which means that he was present when at least one was killed.
yes. And this is new information, and that's kind of like part of the forensic, side of following stuff, which is
Yeah.
so cool that you can kind of analyze blood splatter and kind
Yeah,
of
because
figure
this
stuff
is,
like that
it's like
out.
a very fine mist. And this is not, you ran up to the body and touched it or hugged it, or this is not that kind of thing. It's a very, very fine mist, which means you were, when it's splattered.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it can only come from two, if I'm correct, from two ways. Either the wound, the actual wound splattered on you,
Yeah.
or when they were exasperating and actually dying, the blood came out of their mouth. So any way you look at it, if he had that on his shirt, he was there when they died.
Right.
And he says that he wasn't there at all. He just found them already dead. So he's lying.
And on the police call, whenever he called in, you know, the operator was like, don't touch them. If you haven't touched them yet, don't touch them. We need that for evidence. And of course he was like, well, I've already touched them. But if he were to get blood on himself that way, it's a very different blood from gunshot blood splatter. So it's not like he could use that to say, oh, you know, well, yeah.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure he'll try.
So, right. So, but that's big because, you know, he had this whole alibi that he was not there and he had people backing him up saying, no, he was with his dad or wherever he was. So all of that's interesting.
You know, looking back on it now with a different, you know, through a different lens, his father had Alzheimer's and was dying of it,
did
right?
his
And dementia.
I think his ironclad alibi was that he took his father to the hospital and then he went to see his mother who has dementia.
Yeah.
So I never considered that to be quite ironclad.
Mm-hmm. But and
we're hearing this also
from somebody else, though.
Well, this whole ironclad alibi is not coming from anybody else except his own attorneys,
Right.
Dick Harpootlian and Jim Griffith. And what we've learned throughout this case is that I'm not sure that their word has any merit anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's constantly changing.
Right.
And it's constantly in conflict with the actual evidence and facts.
And and in their defense, maybe, you know, they don't know. There's still so much that's just coming out. I'm sure that Alec is not in there just telling them all the truth. He hasn't told anybody the truth.
And
he's still trying to, you know, manifest it in his brain and tell things. So
he's still being sketchy on the
still
jailhouse
being
calls.
sketchy, yeah.
yeah.
And you know, a couple of things that have recently come out was that Paul's phone has been unlocked, and they have found video on his phone that shows Alec and Maggie talking by the dog kennels where she was
on the night of the murder, right?
The night of the murder. So, you know, people are saying that kind of dispels his alibi as well.
Because he was there, obviously.
So,
And he said he wasn't.
And he said he wasn't there at all.
Alec Murdaugh, a liar? Ever.
I just think it says a lot about how much power he had and how much people, I don't know if they're afraid of him or not, the fact that we're a year out from these murders and everything that he's indicted with, the SLED and the state are really making sure that he's guilty before they charge him with anything.
Which is rare.
Our clients rarely get that benefit.
Right.
Normally it's charged first and we'll keep putting the case together after you're already in jail and you're indicted on these charges. And so the fact that they haven't even indicted him for these murders and the evidence just keeps coming out kind of shows to me that they're afraid to just charge him and accuse him of these things before they actually have it all proven, which is how it should always be.
Well, there's so many eyes on this case at
Yeah.
this point. It's such a high profile case. So many people are involved, you know, as far as the public watching it. You know, that everybody's minding their P's and Q's at this
Well,
point.
this is how an investigation's supposed to be done.
Always.
Right? You're supposed to have every I dotted, every T crossed before you take somebody's liberty away and charge them with a crime. We wish, hope, and pray that every defendant were to get that kind of benefit of a full investigation before charges were brought. And I don't think that's going to make anybody hesitate down the road. I think actually this is probably a great example of what white privilege looks like. Male white privilege in America, and especially in the South.
Just power, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, they're afraid to accuse him of anything until they are sure they can prove it. And this, I mean, there's enough evidence here to charge any one of our clients. They've been charged on less than the evidence they have against
Oh, absolutely.
Alec Murdaugh. And so I just think that speaks volumes to his power and the Murdaugh name still. The fact that he hasn't been charged for it.
Yeah. Agreed. And you know, recently Alec had requested that his jailhouse calls not be released anymore, and that was denied from a federal judge. But you know, why is that something that he would request? You know, I mean, obviously he doesn't want
damaging
stuff out there, but at the same time, I don't know. He knows he's being watched. I mean, he could say stuff on there that helps him in a sense.
He can manipulate the system and chooses not to because he's running a scheme behind bars is what it feels like after you listen to the last stuff.
Yeah, he's using code words and stuff.
Right.
I think it's also just personal calls. I mean, nobody wants their personal calls leaked to the world. But that's what happens to every other inmate who's in jail. You can FOIA all those calls and they use them against them in court and they can put them on the news. And so Alec Murdaugh should be no different.
Yeah. Held to the same standard and accountability.
And yeah, I'm glad the court found it that way.
Yeah. I'm excited about that order though, because I'm going to get a copy of it and I'm going to start FOIAing some calls.
Yeah.
Use it to our benefit.
Yeah.
Well, folks, I mean, obviously you guys want to stay in tune with this, you want to get all the updates, so make sure that you subscribe to our channel so that you can stay updated and get the notifications to watch all these episodes. And we have some other great cases that we chat about as well, other than the Murdaugh murders. But this is
leave
ongoing.
us and leave us questions if there's something that you want to know about. Leave us some questions. Like and subscribe so we can answer them in the next go round, and we'll dig in and try to figure it out.
Yeah. So moving forward, I like to always ask this at the end. What are we kind of waiting for at this point? What do we want to know next?
Who killed Maggie and Paul?
I feel like you say that at the end of every one.
I just want them to charge him. I'm ready for him to be charged.
Yeah.
It feels like there's enough here. And if this is what they're releasing in the news, I mean, there's so much more that we don't even know about. So ready for him to be charged, and we're waiting to figure out how Gloria Satterfield died.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting.
I'm also excited to see how this Mallory Beech lawsuit plays out. Because it's super interesting what's going on with Parker's Kitchen. They're filing motions that they have no standing. I mean, it's kind of crazy. So I'm really excited to see how that plays out too.
Well, and we did kind of discuss on the last episode a little bit about Parker's Kitchen and their odd involvement with hiring the investigator and stuff like that. Is there anything new with that?
Well, Alex Murdaugh signed a confession of judgment in the Satterfield case that he was responsible and took money that was not his of $4.3 million. And everybody was in agreement of that in the case, but somehow Parker's Kitchen's defense attorneys were because they are a creditor of a potential creditor, not a creditor, but a potential creditor, were circulated in that email when everyone was agreeing to it, and they objected to it. And Eric Bland was like, "You have no standing to do so. This is insane."
Yeah.
And we're not gonna play into this game.
Right.
Withdraw your objection. And so it just added a whole nother layer of like craziness to this whole story.
And sort of even commingled all the cases together even more than they are.
Yeah.
Because Gloria Satterfield has nothing really to do with Parker's Kitchen, but now they're even more just...
And they're all in there duking it out.
Right.
My money's on Eric Bland.
I don't know, Mark Tinsley's
Oh, I do love Mark Tinsley too.
He's working too.
They're attorneys. And Mark Tinsley's doing a great job for the Mallory Beech family. That's who represents them and her estate, and he's
Eric Bland
holding them all accountable.
Yeah, and Eric Bland represents Gloria Satterfield, and they're not working against each other, but they're all trying to figure out where the money is.
Yeah.
So they can get their clients compensated. I think they're doing a great job.
They're doing a wonderful job.
Awesome.
I'm proud. And I'm also proud because they're putting the truth out there that no one's, everyone's hesitant to give. And I think that's awesome.
That is great.
Yeah.
Man, the tangle web. Well, thank you ladies for chatting about this today. Of course, there's bound to be lots more updates coming up, so make sure you stick with us. Thank you both for chatting about this. And you guys can find us on all of your social media outlets, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, of course, and we have a podcast, which also is this audio. Thanks so much for watching. Watch next Tuesday at 2 p.m. We'll see you then.
When life gets